Welcome, everybody. Wanted to do a little bit of a different video today because one of the things that gets me is fan bases kind of just pre-baking in hate for different things. And that kind of annoys me after a while. And I asked my friend Bill Sylvie, say hi, Bill,
Hi, Bill.
from his YouTube channel over where he is the dungeon delver and does all things role playing games. Because if you want to talk about some finicky fan bases, role playing games have some pretty finicky fan bases on occasion. They get
Yep.
rather uptight. But in my particular case, I wanted to talk about Disney. Now, if you're Gen X like Bill and I are, Disney is sort of one of those things you absolutely know a lot more about than you care to admit, even
Mhm.
as an adult. And Bill, living in Florida, not far from the Mouse House, he probably knows a lot more about it than I do. Um, just because you've seen it a lot more often than some people have, I'm sure.
Yes.
um, I wanted to talk a little bit about it, but I also wanted to talk about where they're at today as well as kind of where they came from, because I think both of those aspects are important.
Hmm.
I think it's important to understand that the origin of this company comes from this guy right here. This is Walt Disney when he was serving in World War One. That tells you how far back he goes, right? So he was not even 18 years old when he enlisted in World War One. He kind of lied about his age to get in. And then when he came back from World War One, he wasn't even quite ready to start the company. They went through a company called Laugh-O-Grams, and he was kind of trying to find his way to go do things. And Disney, the company, yeah, his original company failed. He went through a few hit or miss things where he was trying to find his footing and figure out what to do and how to make money at this stuff and how to form it into a thing that he can actually make a living at. Because remember, this is going on during the Great Depression, right? So if you don't work, you don't eat, because there were no social safety nets like there are today.
Pretty much.
And there were a couple times when they were doing Laugh-O-Grams, he and his brother, were like begging for food at different places. I'm sorry, his brother wasn't involved in the first one, but Walt was like, living on the goodwill of people around his studio on occasion. And when they started Disney, the company that it sort of is today, Disney Brothers, even that wasn't in any kind of certain certainty, right? It wasn't like the Disney we know today, right, where they can just throw money at it until they succeed, right? It wasn't
Right.
like that at all. There were a number of things they did that just about bankrupted them. I mean, they risked time and time and time again. And one of the ones everybody looks at and goes, "Oh, how cute," is this one right here, Steamboat Willie.
Hmm.
All right, so Bill, you remember what was special about this one?
Um, oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue, Tim, but
First one to integrate sound correctly.
that's right.
So the animation, there were a couple of animated releases prior to this that had sound that weren't really well known because the animation and the sound didn't quite line up. But Disney, being Disney, saw that and goes, or had the, maybe thought of that at the same time, whatever. But he was such a stickler for details. He so wanted a quality product. He was like, quality is what's going to sell this thing. It's not going to be, oh, just throw some stuff together and throw it out the door. It's got to be quality,
Hmm.
right? He went to painstaking details to go figure out how to get the audio and the animation to line up. So much so that he had to kind of invent new technologies as he went along. And one of the ways he's fixed that problem, because the audio and the thing were not lining up. And there's a famous phone call he made from New York. He took his animated thing to New York and he's like, great, we're going to go. We have enough money to do one day with musicians to record the sound for this. And of course, the sound didn't come out quite right. And he called back to his brother and he's like, dude, we got it. We got to fix the sound. He's like, we're out of money, man. What do you want? Right. So Walt, being Walt, was like, I don't care. We're doing it anyway. Right. So he drove on and he figured out that if you do this one little trick where you put like a dot on certain frames and have it bounce around off screen, you can get the music and something. I'm not describing the technology very good, but he figured out a cute little techno trick to get the audio and the video to line up. And as a result, it was the first one where um, uh, people saw a cartoon and the sound was part of the action, because before then it was either silent cartoons and the action was everything, and then you kind of had this sound with the action. And this was, remember, this came out during the Great Depression where people had no money to do anything. So the only entertainment, and Bill, you and I lived through this in the 80s, were kind of, it was different in the 80s. We had arcades and other stuff, but and it
Right.
wasn't depression, obviously. But one of the, you didn't have the entertainment choices you have today, right? We don't have 50 streaming channels. We have three
Right.
TV stations. Hopefully one of them comes in because it's on UHF. And, if you adjust the antenna properly. So if you go to the movies as a kid, even in early Gen X, and I'm kind of earlier Gen X, um, that's sort of one of the big forms of entertainment. You got new movies coming out every week. You go see it no matter
Mhm.
kind of what it is. And before then, you get some previews. But in the Great Depression, you would get these double features, and it would be preceded by like a newsreel and a cartoon. And the cartoon was always there. So the 7-minute shorts, which was where Steamboat Willie came in. And it was one of the first where people were like, no, play that over again. They were shouting up at the projector guys to like play it over. So it kind of took the world by storm and launched Disney into the thing it is. And the thing I want to point out about it is it wasn't just kids that were enjoying it. And I think I see a lot of hate on social media about people getting all mad at Disney adults. It's like adults that enjoy Disney. Oh my God, like adults can't enjoy themselves. That's against the rules. It's bad, right? And when this stuff came out, it wasn't just kids. It was kids, adults. It was everybody, everywhere. And of course, we didn't have social media, so people couldn't dog us, right? But people did enjoy it. And I wanted to rapidly progress into something else that kind of starts to get to the whole point I wanted to do this video of, or video for, was some of that pre-baked hate came from a release earlier this year where they did a live action version of this movie right here. Okay.
Mm,
The
yes.
very first animated full length feature ever. And when they released this, I am reasonably certain bankers were circling, going, all right, if this doesn't work, man, that's it. We own it. We're done. Right. Because they had to mortgage the name, they had to mortgage Mickey, and Mickey was the only thing making money for the company. All the shorts were making money, and this thing was siphoning it off.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure bankers were going, all right, man, this doesn't work. That's it. You're kind of done here. But it was a worldwide hit, and the thing about it was, even watching this as a kid, remember this came out. I took notes on it, like 1937 or something. It was way back in 1937. Um, Pre World War II. It was a color animated film.
Mhm.
They had to invent technologies to get this thing to work.
Oh yeah.
Right. Um, so you're a tech guy, Bill. I'm gonna throw one up and see if you could you
All
know
right.
what it is.
Hit me.
This one right here.
That is a well, I'm obviously it says at the top, but it is a multi-plane camera, and what that gives is incredible parallax and depth of field that gives the idea that you have different depths of objects. A typical single plane animation relies on moving cells and background cells. And background cells, if you want something to be in the background, you have to use 2D perspective. Now, that's still in play here because, with the exception of 3D animation, that is, analgraphic, stereographic animation, you're still dealing in 2 dimensions. But here you can have multiple layers to the background filmed at greater depths from one another and create a true parallax effect. And it is, when it's done right, it is absolutely just just amazing what you can do when you do multiplane properly.
Yeah, so it's like, because before this, and the thing that drove Disney nuts about this was he wanted to be able to zoom in on certain things when they were animating, right? So if you're dealing with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Pinocchio, whatever, you might want to zoom in on Pinocchio, but you don't want the moon in the background to be zoomed in at the same time, because zooming in on something 10 feet away doesn't pull the moon in all that much closer, right? So you wanted the moon to stay there. You wanted this, and other. If you didn't do it with something like this, you'd have to go redraw all that stuff so many times. It would take the cost of the film and drive it through the roof, right? So Disney being Disney, he's like, well, okay, we don't have the money. I'm going to do it, right? So they had to go invent the technology to do it. And today, you or I would do that in Photoshop in like 2 seconds, right? And
Yeah,
have that problem
exactly.
solved. But
You could put that into free computer animation software. Literally, uh, you could accomplish what Disney Studios did with a $5 PC from Goodwill and free software and a public Wi-Fi access point.
exactly. And that's how Snow White got this sort of the film, the animated version, got this sort of just, oh my God, how did Disney do this? He invented pop art in
Yeah,
the process of doing this, because before then, cartoons were cartoons, and that's that, and art's art. He made cartoons into art. It's something that had never been done. And again, it people from the age of like 3 to 93 enjoyed this stuff. There was not an age bracket that was like, no, I'm not going to go see that. That's animated. That's for kids, right? That sort of thing didn't happen. The premiere for this was a star-studded event where Greta Garbo was out there. You had all these big name stars that showed up for this thing, and it was a worldwide hit.
mhm.
And fast forward to today, they tried a live action remake, and I think they forgot that Disney's early appeal for things like Snow White were because they didn't want to like exclude anybody. They didn't want to be like, hey, we like you, but not you. But they were like the new one, they kind of got into, there were a lot of politics that were thrown around about the new one. And,
Yeah.
and I think that turned a lot of people off. And as a result, audiences didn't show up. Um, and I think Disney hopefully is going to learn their lesson about that. But I think one of the other things that we tend to forget today with modern audiences is that kids can handle certain topic areas that we don't necessarily think they can handle in some ways, right? So I see a lot of
Right.
ways where it's like my kids are middle school and high school. It's like in elementary, it's like, oh, you got to protect the kids from this, but we could teach them that, right? So we can have
Mhm.
this sort of we're trying to get kids to age rapidly in some ways and not have any trauma in others. And I think that's not a good thing, because Disney didn't pull punches. And I present to you Bambi.
Bambi. Yes.
And at the end of that movie, I don't know anybody who wasn't like, oh my God, they shot Bambi's mom.
Yeah, and I see this meme show up from time to time, Tim, and I'm sure you know the one I'm talking about, where people talk about how traumatized they were by the death of Atreyu's horse in the
Yeah.
never ending story. Spoiler alert. Um, yeah, for us older Gen X types who saw Bambi on the Wonderful World of Disney,
Mhm.
or when it got re-released in the 1970s, and maybe even there's some boomers out there watching who saw it first run. Yeah, no, we were traumatized a long time before that stunt horse got covered with chocolate pudding for 5 minutes, boys and girls.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
All right. So I just want to put that out there. And you mention adult, and I want to be very careful when I say adult themes. I mean mature, thoughtful things. I sent you a link, Tim, to the Disney live action film list on IMDb, and I was wondering if you could pull that up for me real
That
quick,
one.
because I'd love to show people things. Scroll down to number 3, please. Now, Treasure Island, obviously, there's a kids movie. Robin Hood and His Merry Men. Here's number 3. This is what Disney was serving up as children's fare. During the reign of Henry VIII, Mary Tudor seeks to flee a forced marriage with the French king by escaping to America with her true love, but her plans are not so easily executed. A movie about Henry VIII. It's called The Sword and the Rose. I mean, if you swung past this, if you knew nothing about this film, and it was on AMC or anywhere else, and it was just in the middle, and you watched 20 minutes of this movie, and for the record, yes, I've seen it, you wouldn't think. hey, yeah, this is a Disney movie. This is something that Disney put out in the theaters for kids and families to enjoy. This is a grown up film. And we could go through this entire list of films and find movies that were not targeted at little kids. I mean, and I'm not even talking about, oh, yeah,
Old
well,
Yeller.
back in the 40s and 50s before entertainment was invented. I mean, in
The
Tim, you
old,
remember
old.
Something Wicked This Way Comes, the Ray
Oh yeah.
Bradbury horror
Oh yeah.
story? Old Yeller.
There you go. Old Yeller, right?
Old Yeller, talk about trauma.
I remember watching that one
Um,
on Saturday afternoons. Um, the but the thing I also want people to like the Shaggy Dog, right there. But the
yeah.
thing I also want people to see, and this is something else I think fan bases kind of get crazy about, especially in the social media age. And yeah, I'm calling you out, fan bases. Go ahead, comment on me, see if I care. Um, is they expect everything to be a multi-billion-dollar hit. It's like, oh my god, they only did 200 million. That's it. That's the end, right? You know, it's
Yeah.
over. Blah blah blah. Not everything's going to be $1 billion hit. It's just not. If you go look at some of these things, Treasure Island, I've seen, it's a 1950s movie, so we won't really talk about quality of cinematography here because it's much different than modern stuff. But
Right.
not all of these are great films, right? Even for the time, not a whole lot of these were great films. Some of these were, in fact, kind of stinkers.
Oh yeah, yeah. We all say, oh well, yeah, Something Wicked and Tron
Yeah.
and so on. But people will just kind of forget Treasure of the Matacumbe and the Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again and
Greyfire's
Nikki,
Bobby, the true story of
yeah,
it. I,
Nikki Wild Dog of the North. This is bottom shelf stuff.
these are B films, right? I mean, these are
Yeah. Oh,
just absolute
absolutely.
B
The
movies.
the these are
These
B
are
B films.
Saturday afternoon matinees. This is the first
Yeah.
movie you see at the drive-in before you get to see the one you came for, right?
You saw this stuff pop up on the Wonderful World of Disney back in the 70s, and you went and played with Lego. You went and played with GI Joe. If you're a girl, you went and played with Barbie, because and
Yeah,
your parents would give you the stink eye because, like, you told us you wanted to watch this, and
yeah.
now Dad's got to get up and get the pliers and turn the TV knob with it. Yes, that was our house.
I've never even
But
heard about this one. The Horse and the
yeah,
Gray Flannel Suit. I mean, you know,
yeah,
so I think a lot of times we forget that for every hit, for every wild hit, if you're cutting new ground, if you're trying new stuff, you're going to have a stinker now and again. Not everything is going to be blowout, wild success.
yeah.
And one of the ones that took a lot of heat recently, and one of the reasons I started digging more into this stuff is I took my daughter, and she actually did a video with me. She's older now, but uh, that is my daughter right there in front of the Tree of Life at Disney in Florida. Um, he's now almost 16. He's 14, but there's she's 12 now. Yeah, a lot bigger than she used to be. A lot more opinionated too. I guess they.
Yeah, they get that way.
She told me to leave her alone the other day, but then asked me for money,
Yikes.
so it was okay. So I took her to go see this one.
Okay.
Okay, and the live action version of Lilo and Stitch, and there's a lot of online hate for it because the end of the movie was different than it was in the animated version.
I am one of the people who's disappointed, but I'm not going to throw any hate at it. But please
Well,
continue.
but the point to the change was that the Snow White notwithstanding. Okay, we're going to leave that one completely on its own because that's a different world.
Right.
But they changed the ending of this one, and some people went, "Oh my God, there they go again! Not going to watch it. It's terrible." Blah blah blah. If the first thing that really kind of bothers me about modern fan bases is if you haven't seen something, stop complaining about it. Just don't go.
Yeah.
Right? Just don't go. That's fine if you don't want to go, if you want to issue a boycott, but if you're not actually willing to sit and watch it or listen to someone who has, your opinion really doesn't have a lot of
Well,
water.
I think it's fair to voice I have no interest in this. Um, I think the idea of deciding you're gonna brigade a film, a video game, a comic book, a pen and paper role playing game, a TV show,
Mm.
uh, whatever, and you haven't seen it and you won't see it. I mean, yes, there are obviously things, and you and I have gotten into this when we've talked about our tiers of movie, good,
Yeah.
good, bad, and bad films. You don't have to make me watch um Frankenstein a go-go, you know, a film shot for the budget of like $6,000 and some cold sandwiches to convince me it's not going to be worth the 70 minutes that I'm going to waste watching it. But on the flip side,
Absolutely.
on the flip side, I think there's a point at which you do yourself a disservice by continuing to rant about it. Give it a rant. Say, I think it's a betrayal of the original story to have the ending this way. That disappoints me. I'm not going to see it
Well,
because I don't think it will be good. But I think you're just engaged. It's not even engagement farming. You're engagement clowning at the point at which you dance around saying, "I'm not going to see it. It sucks."
well, the thing that gets me about this one is the online hate is like, oh my god, the older sister, after all this time of the family stay together, she abandons her sister and goes off to college. Well, yes and no. After having watched the movie, even my daughter was like, "Why did it?" And to her credit, she looked at some of the Twitter hate to it. She's like, "Are these people?" She's 12 and a half. Her comment was, "She's like, are these people stupid?" I was like, I can't. I'm not going to argue with you, but sure. Because you don't pick fights with a 12-year-old girl. I've learned this. And second is, I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Look, the older sister made a hard choice, right? So in the animated movie and in the live action movie, the story is essentially the same, right? So the girls have lost their parents somehow. They never really talk about how, but the parents are out. The parents have both passed away, and the
Mhm.
girls are trying to make it on their own, right? And social services just about taking Lilo away from the older teenage daughter a couple of times. And in the animated picture, they all stay together and live happily ever after. Blah blah blah. And in the live action picture, social services says, "Hey, look, the woman that lives next door is like a surrogate grandmother to you. You've known her your entire life. Lilo is not doing well with you, the teenager who can't keep a job. We're going to take Lilo, put her with the neighbor who is kind of like a grandma to her. She's going to live there. You go off to college. Older sister got a full ride to college, FaceTiming with her sister. They
Right.
stayed in each other's lives. It wasn't like, okay, have fun in social services, Lilo. See you later. Right? She didn't abandon her sister. She got her sister taken care of so that she could go off, go to college, come back, and maybe have a better life with her sister than she would have had otherwise. So, did she abandon her as the engagement farming is going? No, she didn't. Did she leave her behind to go to college? Yeah, if you want to look at it that way, she did, but
But it's not
not
like she
really.
she she didn't put her into the foster system
No, it
and say,
wasn't
"I'll
like.
I'll come find you at some point." I,
Yeah, it
although
wasn't like
I
that at all.
I do agree with my daughters, my older daughters, very hotly stated comment that now, Tim, you've been to Hawaii a few times. I've read up on it. Beautiful place. There are whole
Very.
small islands in Hawaii that are nothing but nature preserves. Like you
Yes.
can't live there, you can't go surf there. They are just for biologists and marine biologists. I thought it was a little disingenuous that the older sister goes 2,500 miles away to study marine biology when she is living in one of the richest biospheres, what they call ecospheres for marine biology in the world. But I'm going to let that lay because I
Well,
haven't seen it.
it's because she got into UC San Diego, which has the best marine biology department on the kind of in the country,
Fair
and
enough.
got in with a full ride scholarship. So it was like, yes, but no, right? And they actually played it up at the end of the movie too, where she got to use alien technology to kind of walk through wormholes back and forth to Hawaii whenever she wanted to spend time with her sister. So
That
it
that's
was like,
that's kind of save on dorm fees. Where are you going to be living back home?
like oh,
You know?
shh. The only complaint my daughter had about the entire film was that in the animated series, in the animated version, there was a gag where the older sister was trying to prove that Lilo was an alien, and she's like, "I know you can talk. You better speak now." And Stitch goes, "Okay, okay, okay." And then the sister smacks him with a broom a couple times because he talked, and he's like, "You told me to talk." And that didn't make it into the live action. My daughter was like, "That was funny." I'm like, "Yeah, but they had other jokes in there. They changed it a bit. It's not shot for shot, but fantastic movie. Same basic beats, and I think it did a lot of things that were great. And Disney has gotten under a lot of scrutiny lately for some of its live action stuff, but I think people have very short memories because I want to pull one up. And Bill, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one
Okay.
uh, before I say too much about it because I have my own opinions.
Okay.
A movie starring, get to it, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Jungle
Yeah,
Cruise.
that's Jungle Cruise. I think that was on just the other. Well, I mean, it's on pretty much perpetually if you have Hulu or something like that. Disney's
Mhm.
gonna put that on. But yeah, no, we watched it. We liked it. I would put it in a very high B tier. It's not going to change the way I think about filmmaking and jungle environments, but you know, put it on for some slapstick silliness. Sure, absolutely. This is a movie that Disney would have made in the 1950s or 1960s. They would have stuck Tommy Kirk and Kurt Russell in it, and I don't know, whoever, Haley Mills, and just had a lot of fun with it. And I don't, I don't particularly have any strong you know strong dislike or like about it. It's just just a fun at what is it, hour and 10 minutes, hour and
Like
20
hour and
minutes.
a half or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
something
not
like that.
long.
Yeah,
It's
it's just it's fine. It's fine. We took the kids to see the, what was it, 2014, 2015 Cinderella live action.
mhm.
And the Cinderella live action was fine. It was thoroughly
the
enjoyable.
the
I
Beauty and the Beast live action. My daughter absolutely adored that one. Although Hermione really probably should never try to sing again. But it's
Disney has tried to make a lot of people sing who ought not. I mean, that goes way, 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 way
Darby
back.
O'Gill and Little People. Darby O'Gill.
Oh yeah.
If you haven't seen that one, they try to get Sean Connery to do an Irish accent and sing, and it does not
Yeah.
go well
It,
at
it, it
all.
does not work. Um,
Um,
sorry, Tim.
but
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. So, but the thing I like about them is with Disney films, most Disney films, not necessarily all of them, because they did do Deadpool, but that's different. I can take my kids to go see a Disney film and not really worry about things. And like when they were little kids, it was one thing, and now that they're teenagers, it's a little bit different because my kids will go see things, and I don't care if they're exposed to stuff, especially the one that's about to be a high school sophomore,
Mhm.
if they're exposed to certain things. But if they're watching certain films and certain topics sitting next to me, they're going to be very uncomfortable because Dad's right there, right?
Yeah,
They're just
yeah.
not
No,
going to have fun with
I get it. I get it.
it. Right. But with a Disney film, I can watch it, walk in, and 99% of the time, I know it's just going to be fun. Everybody there is going to be great. It may not be the best filmmaking. And I offer as an example National Treasure. Love the first one. Then they tried to do a second one, not so good. Um, with the possible exception of the fact that I had Helen Mirren, which makes everything better. But
Yes, Helen Mirren makes everything better.
not even she could fix that particular one. But outside of that,
Well,
it was a good film.
yeah, mm.
I'm sorry. Helen Mirren fixes everything.
She does. She
Uh,
absolutely does. Gen X grew up seeing Helen Mirren for the first time in Excalibur, Boys and Girls. And if you don't know what that is, ask your parents.
yes,
Um,
and Excalibur, many boys really liked.
really liked Excalibur.
Really liked Helen Mirren.
Yes.
So
Um,
so did our dads. Um,
Absolutely.
We're
Now,
gonna leave it at
you
that.
know, we talked you talked a little bit about technology, and there's a couple of things that I want to mention. Really cool, innovative stuff that Disney has done. Everybody, even of a younger age, everybody remembers Tron.
Mhm.
Tron was truly something special.
It's the
Uh,
first CGI ever.
the 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 first full color filled poly CGI. I think it's
Mm.
important we make that distinction because there was actually some CGI as early as
There's
either
maybe one of the Star
Westworld or
Treks.
the Andromeda strain had some computer graphics on it. But
Okay.
what brought it to what we consider a modern level
Mhm.
is Tron. And Tron, okay, as an IT guy, and Tim, I know you've got a strong IT background, and probably much of your audience has a strong IT background. From a computer standpoint, Tron is pretty goofy. You
Oh,
know,
terrible.
I got pulled into the computer, and you know, programs which back then would have been like 64 kilobytes are fully functional AIs and stuff like that. Um, so if you set aside that premise, Tron is almost a prototype cyberpunk movie. You know, I'm trapped in the Matrix. I've
Yep.
got viruses coming after me, and so on. But Tron used a photographic process that had never been attempted before. And when they would render the 3D graphics, the computers that they used, and it was supercomputers back then, um, they would render entire scenes not knowing if they would print to the film properly. They could not pre-visualize. There was no, I sit down at the workstation and render a 3D model
Mhm.
and move it around and look at it and wrap a texture onto it and see
Absolutely
how the
not how it
light
worked.
plays
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
It was math. It was writing math computer programs. Um, and you know, they unabashedly, unafraid, jumped straight in to CGI, and it's part of that Disney live action innovation. And I think even before then, there. Okay,
They,
here's a trivia
they,
question for you, Tim. Do you know the lost? Well, it was rediscovered, but do you know the lost for a long time film process used in Mary Poppins? Do you know what it is?
oh yeah, it was the same thing they used to do that.
Yes,
Right.
that was the sodium process.
Mhm.
It was a sodium yellow light process that did not like people tend to say, oh, blue screen or green screen or split screen or color separation. Now, Disney did not invent that process, but they were the first ones to wholly embrace it for Mary Poppins,
Mhm.
for the animated sequence when Mary and Bert jump into the chalk drawing and interact with the penguins, and you know they
Mhm.
have the wonderful dance, and then the rain comes and dissolves the chalk drawing around them. That whole sodium process was entirely innovative, and it was lost for a long time. Nobody used it anymore. Disney didn't have the functioning gear anymore until film preservation groups reached out to them and leased a lot of that equipment to make exemplary sodium process films. I think as recently as the 20 teens or early 2020s. And that was just part of that leading edge, bleeding edge that Disney live action could be known for. Not all of them, not all of them. For every Mary Poppins, we got one of our dinosaurs is missing. For
Well, I
every
mean,
Tron, we got Treasure of the Matacumbe.
for
You know,
1964, this this was amazing stuff,
yeah.
right?
That I mean,
Uh, the thing about early Disney, at least until Walt passed away, is you could almost go through their list of stuff and say, okay, which ones was he really involved in?
yeah,
Right? Which ones was he intimately involved in? And you could like pick them out just because they're the really good ones. And I'm not
yeah,
dissing anybody else that worked at the company, but he had a very specific view and a very specific way of driving people, and he was the boss. So if he wanted something done, it happened. Right? I don't know that all
hmm
the directors got that option. Um, But the other thing is just walking around the parks, and I've been to both California and Florida. Um, you could kind of tell the parts that were done, or at least thought through, after the people who worked with him were around, right? Because you could tell the older part of the parks from the newer part of the parks pretty easily, and it's not just a technology thing. It's not just a ooh, that tech is better, therefore it's part of the new park. It's not that. It's there's no, I almost hate to say this. It's no, okay, just insert generic whiz bang techno gadget here, right?
Mhm.
It's not that. It's really thought out about how you tell the story and how you craft the experience versus now where it's like, hey, let's impress people, right? It's not the same vibe. It's how do you tell a story and get people to be immersed in that story and forget about their daily life, because that I think is drives at the heart of some of the fan base problems we have, is that a lot of entertainment companies have forgotten that when I go see a movie, I don't want to think about all the crap I've been thinking about all week. I don't want to think about politics. I don't want to think about Ukraine. I don't want to think about I don't care about any of that stuff when I'm going to see a movie. I'm trying to get away from all that stuff. I'm trying to relax. I'm trying to unwind.
Mhm.
And it kind of hit me earlier this last week. Um, I was looking at some old photos, and I'm like, when I actually go to the parks, the couple of times I've been, it's one of the few vacations I go on where I don't really think about other stuff while I'm there. They are really good at that full immersion, just forget about your daily life kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of their movies, the good ones, not the icky ones, or the B films, were really good at saying, let's get you out of your daily life and struggle and put you in this fantasy world.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Lilo and Stitch did. And I think that's what certain other ones have failed to do. But I think as long as the company themselves, who by the way, financially, people are like, oh, they had a failure. How do they stay in business? Blah blah blah. I looked up their financials. Disney is not in trouble at any stretch of the meat by any stretch,
Yeah.
right? Their earning per share are well over $4 a share. They've generated 30 something billion in profit after taxes and interest last year.
Yeah. Now, one
They're
thing that
fine.
for anyone out there who's maybe of a younger Gen X or millennial or whatever who thinks Disney is in bad shape now because maybe you saw, it's like you zoomed in to DIS on
Um,
Google search and you
or you
saw,
looked at one movie,
yeah, you
so
you saw the line do this after
yeah.
Snow White. And I want to qualify what I'm about to say with I'm not a huge Disney fanboy. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, they've done some things I like. They've done some things that I very, very much don't like. So this is not coming from someone who's on Tim's stream to blow sunshine up Disney sign quarters. Um, if you didn't know this, in I would say probably from the early 1970s up until the early 1980s, Disney kind of sucked. I don't
It,
just mean film wise, I mean the parks wise.
yeah, they were in trouble often. They almost got taken over a couple of times and
Yeah,
just bought out.
they
And it
their
was
their parks were kind of run down. Um, I remember the first time I ever went to Disney. I remember going to the men's room when we were in one of the restaurants, and I remember going to the men's room. Understand, this is in Disney World. This is in Walt Disney World.
mhm.
And the men's stall that I went into had obscene graffiti all over the inside of it, like what you would see in a bus station. And it was not a day's worth of scribbles either. This was not like, well, I'm sure by the end of the shift they came in and no, it was, the rest of the park was fun, but that stuck with me for some reason. I was like, wow, that's kind of nasty. Um, Disney was not in great shape back then. Don't mistake whether you are cheering Disney on, whether you are, for whatever reason, rooting for Disney's downfall. Don't mistake uh uh what's her name? I don't I messed this up on one of my live streams. The young lady who played Snow White, don't mistake her political mouthing off and causing bad box office performance and Disney scrambling at the public reaction to their horrid seven magical creatures and then CGIing in seven equally horrid dwarves and consequently Snow White bombing to Disney is hemorrhaging money. Disney will be gone next week. Universal's going to buy Epcot. SeaWorld's going to buy the main park, and then they're going to sell off Animal Kingdom for condos. That's not going to happen. I would like to see Disney get their comeuppance in some way to shock them back into the state that they were in after the release of The Little Mermaid, when they turned on the charm and really went all in for customers again. Because I feel like, and Tim, if you don't agree with me, I want to hear from you because it's your live stream. I feel like they're moving to more of an exclusive curated experience and away from come on in America. This is your fantasy getaway. I
Well,
would
I
like to
think
see them shift back to the latter.
well, I think part of it was they had changes in leadership too that I think kind of fixed a large part of that. So Michael Eisner came in and took over in like 84,
Mhm.
85 as the CEO.
Yeah.
And I think it took a couple of years for him to kind of clean it up and get things like the Little Mermaid back out because it was like late 80s, 88, 89, someplace.
Yeah, I think Little
Uh,
Mermaid was 89.
and by then the park started to get cleaned up and they started to kind of go the right direction. And then he left and Bob Iger came in, but Iger came in as president in like 2000. And then he became CEO as like 2004, give or take.
Hmm.
And then he left for a little while. Now I think he's back as the CEO or something. But I think if you get Bob Iger a chance after some of the stuff that I think COVID messed up a lot of things for a lot of people, right? And even bigger companies, I think, are still
It did.
lingering with that COVID effect. And I think Iger, being the leader that he has been over the years, I think he's going to look at what happened with Disney and some of the Star Wars series and go, okay, folks, let's get back to our roots, right? Because between him and Michael Eisner, the company could have been at that point when Eisner took over, the company could have been acquired by somebody else. It was still possible to do,
Yeah.
right? Um, Now, if you look at it like, oh, I see this one once in a while too. It's like, oh, somebody should come in and buy Disney and fix this and go back to nothing but hand painted animation. I saw that on Twitter one day. I'm like, you understand how expensive that would be to do in today's market? That is never going to
I would like to see them do it again because I thought the Frog Princess was absolutely gorgeous.
happen.
I think they could do it again, not strictly, but I
Right.
I wouldn't mind seeing
A
seeing
mix. Like
yeah.
Beauty and the Beast was part. It was sort of some of each, right? There was some
Mhm.
CGI and some hand painted, and I think it would be nice to see a mix. But I think pure go back to the way they did it in Cinderella. That's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, yeah, the company is a market cap of some insane number. If you look at what it would take to actually buy them out, I don't know that there's a whole lot of companies or people big enough to actually pull it off.
Apple
They
maybe, Microsoft maybe.
I don't know that Microsoft's even big enough to do it anymore. They used to be, but I think they've been taking some hits with some of the Google Office replacement stuff
Yeah.
over the years.
True. I think
Uh,
Apple could do it. Their market cap right now is 3 trillion, and Disney's market cap is 408 billion.
yeah, I mean, maybe they could, but even for them, that would be the board would be like, "Are we sure we want to
Yeah,
do
do we really want to
that?"
swallow this?
Because that's not really what we do here, right? I mean, we kind of have a streaming channel, but not
Yeah.
really like other people do. We don't do movies the same way.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I think if you walked in with that idea at Microsoft, you'd probably get laughed out because their market cap is only 3.42 trillion right now. So
yeah, I mean, it's still you know, it maybe if some Silicon Valley bigs got together, maybe they could achieve it, but why? I mean, the
yeah,
company's doing just fine. It does financially speaking. Um, and it'd be very difficult to do that on a company that size because you'd have to have a hostile takeover where you start buying the stock. And the trouble is, the more stock you buy, the more expensive it gets, and it gets harder and harder to do.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of quietly acquire $100 billion in stock to even have a shot at it. And you're not going to quietly acquire $100 billion of anything in this world without somebody paying attention
No.
to it. So it becomes a problem. But I think the company, by and large, sure, it made its mistakes over the years, but I think they got a history of learning from those mistakes and kind of self-correcting it. And like we were talking before the live stream, they've now got competition, especially on the park side. You brought up Universal, right?
Yes.
But I think Universal is competition for the 18 and up crowd, right? So I've taken my kids to Universal, and part of the park is great for kids. Part of the park is like you kind of have to be older to get it. Little kids are not really going to like
Yeah.
some parts of Universal. Older teenagers, sure. 14, 15 and up, sure. But
Yeah.
depending on the kid. But 8, 10, 12, no, then they want to go to Disney. And I think Disney has that competency where it can be kids from 3 to 93, whereas they've got
Yeah.
a slightly different audience over at Universal. But that being said, they started to chip away at their theme park stranglehold that they've had, because in the theme park world, there's sort of Disney and everybody else, right? Six Flags doesn't count. It's roller coaster heaven, right? That's all it is. It's not a theme park. It's just you go ride rides, and that's basically all it is. Disney is an immersive experience. Universal is an immersive experience. It's a much different kind of theme park. And I think Disney, with that competition and others trying to come into the area of what they do with film, I think is going to make them kind of evolve and hopefully kind of get their foot back underneath them on how to do live action, because like one of the ones that is oddly enough infinitely rewatchable, at least in my opinion. Let me see if I can pull it up here. When these came out, Bill, I laughed. I'm like, how are you gonna make this into a movie anybody actually wants to go sit through? It's a movie derived from a freaking ride.
Yeah. I was thinking about that earlier. The Pirates of the Caribbean films, even the not so great last Pirates of the Caribbean film is phenomenal. It is just, I mean, the amount of fun that they crammed into those movies beggars belief. That sitting and watching those in the theater, and I've been lucky enough to see a couple of them on the big screen. Sitting and watching those in the theater is damn near close to what if Disney put you in the ride Pirates of the Caribbean, but it ran for 2 hours.
Exactly. They were
And I think
fun.
I think whoever came up with the idea for the movie, because let's be honest, this thing has probably got a producers and executive producers and screenwriters list that could fill a small town phone book. Phone books were these paper things we used to look up people's numbers in, for some of the younger audience. But whoever walked in and said, what if we put somebody in Pirates of the Caribbean and it ran for 2.5 hours and we had to fill that 2.5 hours? We start with a basic premise and it ends just the same. How would we do that? And people just started writing like mad. And these epic, ridiculous, over the top sagas are what we got. And you're absolutely right. They're infinitely rewatchable.
and and the best part is they're like, get Johnny Depp and just let him do whatever he wants, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
What would you like me to do? Johnny, we
just,
don't care. You're a pirate. You're a magic pirate. Here's a cursed treasure. Go.
it's like, he was so good in them. You're like, you kind of forget that that's Johnny Depp. You're like,
Yeah,
that is Captain Jack Sparrow, right? Because
it
I've seen
is.
Johnny Depp a lot, and you look at those, you're like, that's not Johnny Depp. That's not.
But you have heard of me.
You have just you absolutely the worst pirate I've ever heard of.
But you have heard of me.
Yeah, my daughter recites that one quite often.
I just his bet for me, his best line is that almost like broken-hearted kid who didn't get what he wanted on Christmas morning look when Keira Knightley has set all of his supplies on his bolt hole island on fire, and he just looks at her and says,
It's like, where's
"Where's
the
the
rum?
rum gone?" I burned all the food and the rum, and he just turns and looks at her. Why is the rum gone?
It's like, I must have rum. The
Yeah,
For me in that film, the one that gets my daughter to laugh, both my teenage boys to laugh, and I every time it's on, is when he's walking through the pirate town and he gets slapped. He's like, I may have deserved it. And he gets slapped a couple more times. The last one, he's like, okay, I deserved
yeah.
that one.
And if you're out there and you're watching and you haven't been to Walt Disney World, it's probably in Anaheim too, Tim. But yes, there is a Johnny Depp animatronic now in Pirates of the Caribbean, voiced by him.
Yes,
Um,
there is. And I have saw somewhere he actually showed up and like replaced the animatronic one day, like as he was.
he's done that before. He's like
Yeah.
he has notoriously, and I'm sure Disney arranged it. I don't think Johnny Depp just woke up one morning and said, well, time to go to Disney.
No,
But
no.
yeah, he has famously showed up at both WDW and Disneyland in full Jack Sparrow drag and hung around Pirates of the Caribbean and so on. They have actors doing it now too,
Mhm.
but it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, and he's a gifted actor, so I'm sure that
Very
it
much so.
comes off very well. But anyway, the point to wanting to talk about this was, and I think we covered it, was that not every movie any company puts out is going to be a hit. That's just asking too much of any corporation. It's just not going to happen. And kind of pre-bashing them because, well, I heard about this one little thing they changed. I've decided I don't like that. We're done. It's over, and Disney's going to stop being Disney, and it's done. Right. I think that's kind of foolhardy because like I took a bunch of garbage on Twitter one day when I was like, oh, I went to go see this one. Like, oh, you got to stop going and seeing them. How else are we going to get Disney to stop making live action films? I'm like, Disney's never going to stop making live action films. They've been doing that since like 1940s up there, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
it's forever ago, right? That's their heart and soul, right? So if you think you not going is going to stop them, it's not. That's not going to happen.
yeah.
Um, because like people were, I was actually talking to somebody today. I went out and met a couple of thriller writers from the Dallas area, for some ablutions, shall we say, um, earlier, because it's just a nice day in Dallas. You go sit down on a patio and have a beer. But like Lilo and Stitch, everybody's like, oh my God, it's so awful. You can't go see it. $100 million budget. So far, it's done $610 million in box office. I got news for you. Disney's going to do a second one of those.
Yeah,
there will
yeah,
be a Lilo and Stitch 2 coming at you pretty soon because with that
yeah.
kind of return, they're not done with live action anytime in the near future. It's just not going to happen. And one other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about, if I'm not keeping you from anything, Bill,
No, not at all. It's Sunday
is
night. I have no place else to be.
uh, a lot of the you and I grew up in an era where I saw Star Wars Episode 4 when it
Mhm.
was first in the theater.
Yes, same.
I was young. I remember it being huge. It was everywhere. Everyone talked about it. We all wanted the toys, the action figures, the Millennium Falcon. We all wanted all that stuff. Um, and I've kind of grown up with Star Wars being Star Wars. And now we have Disney doing a lot of Star Wars things. And yeah, okay, they Disneyfied it, but if you release the 1979 version today, it's not going to find an audience in the same way it did when it first came out because it broke a lot of ground. And some would argue it was the best sci-fi of its time, and others would say, no, no, Star Trek. And I would think, okay, Star Trek 1, eh, Star
I
Trek
know, I know you're
2,
not. I know you're not a fan of
Star
two
Trek,
was phenomenal.
Star Trek 2 is one of the best science fiction films ever made. I mean,
Yes.
it just is. But I don't think Star Wars would get the attention it did if it hadn't come out at that point in time because it was bigger and unlike anything anybody had ever seen.
Yes, there is a zeitgeist. There are films that can just hit just
Right.
perfectly, and and they're going to change everything. And I mentioned this before. Star Wars came out at a time when our country absolutely positively needed something to raise its spirits.
Yeah, the
You know,
gas
with
shortages,
gas
the
shortages,
yeah,
end of the Vietnam War. We had literally just gotten through the Nixon scandal. We've got, you know, the economy feels like it's just falling apart, and all of our science fiction up to this point, and you and I have talked about this before, was moody and depressing.
yeah.
There were no more, it's, you know, starting in the 60s, you know, they hit us with like a quinella of depressing science fiction movies in the 70s. Soylent Green, Planet of the
Ugh.
Apes, Omega Man, Silent Running, Logan's Run,
Yeah.
Idaho Transfer, just and I mean, even 2001, can you say 2001 was uplifting?
No,
No, no, of
absolutely not.
course not.
It's
It was
amazing, but
it was amazing, but it was kind of cold and enigmatic. We didn't get heroic movies, and the movies that were coming out around Star Wars even were as depressing as hell. I mean, our sports movies, Brian's Song,
oh,
you know,
great movie, depressing.
great movie. Don't get me wrong. Our car chase movies. I mean, you know, Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry
Oh,
ends with a fiery car wreck. Vanishing Point,
Death Race
Death Race.
2000.
Well, Death Race is goofy, but you
Yeah.
know, Vanishing Point ends with a hero dying in a fiery car. All of our media was just so down, 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 down,
Mhm.
down. And here's Star Wars. A young farm boy goes toe to toe with the Galactic Empire, space German National Workers Party. Um, I got to be careful about that. You know, and it combines gunfight at the OK Corral and the Dam Busters and the Seven Samurai and the Hidden Fortress and so many fantastic things, and it hit at just it found our weakness in our Death Star of mendacity and
Mhm.
depression and exploded it in this dazzling light of what heroic cinema could be again. I'm sorry. You can have the talking stick back,
No, no,
Tim.
no, no. It's okay. But my point is that when Disney bought it out, and they did the new trilogy, which a lot of people were like, oh my god, Disney killed it.
Didn't
Okay,
care for it.
I enjoyed it. I mean, was it the same? No. But you
Mm.
can't do the same stuff because it's what 40 years later now, right? You can't. You got to do something new. You can't. Oh, let's just retell the same story. And arguably, it is kind of the same story, but you have to kind of put a new twist on it. Now, was it perfect? No. Would I have made different choices? Absolutely. And because oh, Disney can't do Star Wars, they've destroyed it. I present to you the Mandalorian because everybody watched that thing, at least the first two seasons. Baby Yoda
Exactly.
was everywhere. Disney can do Star Wars and they can get it right, even on the small screen.
And
But
Baby
again, we
Yoda
go
was
back,
literally only supposed to be a 4 episode arc in The Mandalorian.
yeah, and
People went bonkers for that damn Muppet.
exactly. But the point is, like we said at the beginning, not all things are perfect. Sometimes you don't bat 1,000. You have a lot more Star Wars than you used to have because Disney's churning it out faster and faster and faster. The trouble is when Star Wars first came out, it was what 79 to like 84 before you saw another one.
77 to 80, 80 to
77,
83.
77 to 83. So like 5, 6 years somewhere
And
before you
when
saw
you're
another one.
7 years old and they tell you someday a sequel will come out,
Yeah.
that's like, and to like, I remember there was about 2.5 years between um the last two Avengers movies.
Mhm.
And I was like, you know, when they started running trailers for the second one, I was like, didn't that just come out? I can imagine my dad probably in 80 when they started running trailers for Empire was probably like, didn't Star Wars just come out? Me, I was like, oh, Star Wars came out so long ago. We're finally getting a sequel.
Yeah, it was the same way. I was like, and then Empire came, or sorry, Return of the Jedi came out in 80, late
Two,
80s.
82, I think 82 or 83.
No, Return of the Jedi, not
Or
Empire.
Jedi, yeah, Jedi.
I'm gonna have to look. It's gonna bug me if I don't actually go find the answer
No,
because somebody is
I
probably
get you.
typing in the comments after I put this out.
I
When was Return of the Jedi released? Was, yeah, 83. So so it the tempo was, and now you got new Star Wars stuff coming out all the time, right? So you've got a number of them a year. You've got stuff on Disney Plus. You've got all kinds of Star Wars content that you wouldn't have had, at least if Lucasfilm was still doing it.
mhm.
So is it as good? No. Is it better than having nothing there? Okay. Maybe you disagree with that, but I think it's better than having nothing there. You've now got a deeper appreciation for the universe than you had before. And I think, they've done some good stuff with it. They've done some okay stuff with it. They've done some stuff I wouldn't have done with it for sure. But I get what they're doing. They're trying to appeal to a different audience, because if they're only trying to appeal to you and I, their lifespan with that product line is near zero, right? Because
Yeah.
we're going to stop seeing movies at some point, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Um, whether it's on purpose or because we can't remember where the movie theater is, one way or the other, we're going to stop seeing movies.
I'm reminded
Um,
of an entertainer who used to do a parody of supercalifragilistics, and he was terminal at the time he would do his shows, and he said, I'm surprised Disney hasn't sent me a cease and desist, because one day I will."
well, it uh I don't know. I just think that a lot of times, as a modern fan base, we have a tendency to demand more than is actually possible from any entertainment company. Um, One thing I would appreciate from all entertainment companies is for people to remember that entertainment is an escape, not a chance for I'm not looking for a lecture, right? And if the
Yeah.
only option you give me is a lecture, I'm probably not going to go.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I feel like, yeah, I feel like that's where a lot of stuff has has that is where a lot of modern Disney and a lot, indeed, of latter day Marvel movies, latter day Star Wars movies, and anyone else's, in my opinion, are rightly taking heat. I mean, two movies came out very close to each other, and if you haven't seen them, Tim, and if you guys out there watching them haven't seen it, particularly the latter one I'm going to mention, I highly recommend you check them out. Is Captain Marvel and Alita Battle Angel. They both tell
saw
stories.
Captain Marvel. I have not
You
seen
saw
the other one.
Captain. You saw Captain Marvel. Watch Alita Battle Angel. Disney owns 20th Century Fox, who put it out. So maybe someday we'll see a sequel. It only made about $650 million. So hopefully that's enough to ask Jim Cameron to make the sequels to it that he wants to. But they're two similar movies in that they show women empowered and doing things their own way, and doing heroic things, undergoing the Bildungsroman, the story journey, the hero's journey. And one of them kind of gets very preachy in places subtly, but it's still there. And the other one's not at all. The other one is just pure futuristic cyberpunk action. And I know which one I would prefer to see.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, yeah, I'm 53, and honestly, I don't think about whether or not the lead is a man or a woman. I just, it doesn't even register to me half the time. Yeah, okay, it registers, but what I mean by that is I've never seen a movie and go, oh, that's a woman in the lead on an action film. I'm not going to go see it.
Yeah.
And anybody from Gen X who, one of my favorite memes that runs around on occasion is what's her name from Hunger Games saying, "Oh, well, we finally had an action film with a female lead." I'm like, Sigourney Weaver would like to have a chat with you
Yeah.
because
Sigourney Weaver, Carrie Fisher,
Carrie
who else?
Fisher.
Um,
You go down the list of there's a couple out there that would really like to have
yeah,
a chat.
more than one or two.
Angelina Jolie. I mean,
Angelina Jolie. I mean,
yeah. In fact, there were a couple of action films I went to go see specifically because it was Angelina Jolie. But we'll leave that part out of this.
Will do.
So
That'll go on the cutting floor, but
I'm single. It's okay. I can say that because she's a very attractive woman, and she was the kind of the draw for a couple. Um, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I am going to say something about Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I have seen that movie many, many, many times, more than anybody else probably wants to me to admit out loud. And I will give it one thing and one thing only. Number one, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. There's a whole lot of sexy on that screen. No matter what you do at any point in time, there's a whole lot of eye candy on that screen. Number two, there is absolutely no plot in that film. It is a marital argument with guns. That's all it is, and it's fantastic.
and if you're from certain parts of the South, you can just drop the with guns.
Exactly. Well, you're from Florida, so
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to unpack when you say, well, you're from Florida to me. So,
I was actually looking at some Florida golf courses the other day, and when you guys have water traps, apparently you do not go in after your golf ball in the
no,
water traps
no, you
in
don't.
Florida.
I don't care if your metallic center is gold. You let that top flight go and you just say, bye ball. You
Yeah,
do
you
not
got
get in ponds. You do not get
yeah,
in ponds in Florida.
Florida has a whole different meaning to it's a trap.
Yeah.
But we'll leave that part go. And apparently I have to, if I come to Florida more often, I have to exchange Bucky's for Wawa. But
We'll, we'll, we'll get you up to speed, Tim. Don't worry.
I like Bucky's, man. They're pretty good.
I know. I've heard good things about Bucky's. There's a couple in state. One's over in Volusia County, and I think the other one is like further north up towards the Panhandle. But that's for another discussion.
The whole different video.
Yeah,
But my point with the Disney video is like, look, they're going to get some stuff right. They're going to get some stuff wrong. It's a company. Not every company is perfect. Um, did they get Snow White, the live action Snow White, right? There were issues. Did they get Lilo and Stitch right? Despite the online protests, I think they got it. They did a very good job with it. Could it have been different? Sure, but it's still, I think, very good. And Bill, I'll leave you with the last word, but I will tell you this: that sometimes companies do things very well, sometimes they don't do them quite right. But there's a new Tron coming out, so
well, thank you for giving me the last word. I love Tron. I really, 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 really enjoyed the second Tron film. I am goosebumps about seeing the third Tron film. So I'm hyped about it. Now, my last word is nobody at investment groups likes to see the line go down ever. The line went down with Snow White. Did it go down enough to cause the company to hemorrhage and fall over and die? Absolutely not. There's no series of films that Disney could release that would do that. However, for those investors who don't like to see the line go down, and for Disney in particular, I hope a lesson was learned, and I hope they understand that making a live action remake of a beloved film can be done, witness Cinderella, but it's something that should be done with great care and respect, witness Snow White. And that's what
there you go. So we'll leave it at that. You can catch Bill 5 nights a week on a live stream on his channel where he does all kinds of things, old school RPG. I'm on Tuesdays and Fridays, so you can't miss that.
That's right.
I'll
disintegrate Tim one way or the other for your entertainment, folks.
That's right. You will not escape me. I'm everywhere. It was a credit card commercial for a while. I think it was American Express or somebody. It was Capital One. We're everywhere you want to be.
Everywhere you want to be.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. We'll talk to everybody soon.